Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now there are many opinions about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, and many ex-legends of the sport like Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis are going to have their take on it. Although we haven't heard Lennox Lewis's just yet, he hasn't really said that much about Anthony Joshua since the Andy Ruiz situation, and obviously the fact that he explained Anthony Joshua needs to fix certain problems to be able to win that fight. And I mean, there weren't too many problems he needed to fix. It was inexperience that cost him more than anything else, because let's look at this stat. AJ's been down a couple of times in his career against two separate opponents, Andy Ruiz and Vladimir Klitschko, but he's never been on the floor by someone who he hasn't knocked down at first. So that tells you one clear thing. It's down to inexperience. What happened in the Ruiz fight? Was Ruiz better than AJ in the first couple of rounds before what happened in the third? No, he wasn't. Anthony Joshua was in control. I mean, you can break it down and make it sound really intricate, but at the end of the day, it's often some things that are very simple that need to be rectified. That is what AJ done. He broke it down and made sure he knew what he needed to work on and be a bit more patient. We've seen that in his last two fights. This is not a different Anthony Joshua. It is the same one, just a little bit more mature and patient. Now of course those comments were made from Lennox Lewis around the Andy Ruiz Jr. fights, and he hasn't really said too much since then about AJ, and Mike Tyson has had plenty to say also about Anthony Joshua, but more recently. And it is interesting how these guys not dig at Anthony Joshua, but they always have something to say, but they only have good things to say about Tyson Fury. Maybe it's because Mike Tyson has met Tyson Fury and had him on his podcast and things like that. There's a connection there perhaps. I mean, Anthony Joshua has always respected Lennox Lewis and Mike Tyson, especially Mike Tyson. I mean, obviously he called Lennox Lewis a clown, but that was because he was jibing at him, prodding at him over years and years, and AJ just snapped. I mean, what is he supposed to do? Just let it carry on and keep going and then just accept it? No, he's not going to do that. He did respect him as a fighter. He said he's a beast as a fighter, but as a person, man to man, if he had something to say, then why didn't he go to Anthony Joshua? That was the reason behind those comments being made, because he said the only one who does call him up and actually gives him advice away from the media and doesn't want attention for it is Vladimir Klitschko. So there is a better relationship between those two. Now Klitschko is someone who isn't a fan of Tyson Fury, but is of AJ, so we have that kind of flipped on the other side. But Vladimir Klitschko doesn't always come out and say how good Anthony Joshua is. He says it privately through messages. He's not after any attention. He will give him advice behind the scenes. That is the better way to do it. Now of course the comments made a few weeks ago about Anthony Joshua was that he telegraphs his punches too much for someone like Tyson Fury, and Tyson Fury will be able to read them and he will make him miss and make him pay. It's a recipe for disaster. That is what he explained. Now I don't necessarily believe that Anthony Joshua does telegraph his punches, and what I also believe is that Tyson Fury does something similar in his fights every time. He has a double feint, he feints a lot, he's twitchy, but the one thing someone has never done in there with Tyson Fury is commit when he does do those feints. When someone does that, it will be interesting to see how Tyson Fury reacts, to see how Tyson Fury copes with being taken away from his game plan and not being in control, because we've seen Anthony Joshua in a situation that he cannot control. In the Klitschko fight which he pulled through and managed to get his second win and get the victory, in the first Ruiz fight, it was a situation he could not control, but he was unable to get the better of him. He did in the second fight though, whereas Tyson Fury has never been faced with that kind of adversity in a fight such as that. The Deontay Wilder fight does come to mind when talking about that, and I want to give him a huge amount of credit for getting up in that 12th round. I mean, what an incredible moment that was. But still, he was never in a position where he was out of control for a long period of time, for rounds at a time. Now that takes someone truly special to be able to flip that and then find a way back into the fight. Fury has never had to be in that situation. It's not his fault. He's never been in that situation because he's never had to. Early on in his career obviously, but that was against a lower level opposition who Tyson Fury should be beating, and he always has those extra gears. But when he's in there with an elite level heavyweight, things will be different. He was never in that situation against Vladimir Klitschko. He was with Deontay Wilder, but under different circumstances. In that situation with Deontay Wilder, he had been knocked down by a big punch or a 1-2. It was almost like that right hand knocked him out and the left hook woke him back up again. But he rose and he managed to win the fight in my opinion and in the opinion of many. It was a draw. But let's be real, Tyson Fury won that fight. But still, he was never in there for a couple of rounds, losing rounds against Deontay Wilder, then came back. And perhaps that is one question that still needs to be answered from Tyson Fury. At elite level, can he be in there with a fighter such as Anthony Joshua, lose round after round, 2 or 3, then still find a way back into the fight? There are still questions that AJ needs to answer also, and that's the whole point of this fight. Who finds the answers to their questions that still need to be asked, such as this one about Tyson Fury, and the one that Mike Tyson is putting forward about Anthony Joshua is that he telegraphs his punches, and that is a recipe for disaster. So can he find a recipe that does beat Tyson Fury? Is he able to do something different and almost befuddle Tyson Fury? Because there are those who are saying that Anthony Joshua is one-dimensional and therefore doesn't have what it takes to beat someone like Tyson Fury, but then again you have to look at his resume. The fighters who he has fought and beaten and even been behind against but still managed to find a way, he has always done that, been in tough fights back to back. Now, Tyson Fury is yet to defend a world championship, and that is something he will be doing for the first time against Anthony Joshua. So going from Deontay Wilder to AJ, so tough fights back to back, it will be interesting to see how also he deals with that. So there aren't just questions that need to be answered from Anthony Joshua, but Tyson Fury as well. So with Mike Tyson saying that AJ telegraphs his punches too much, what about that double feint from Tyson Fury? Certain things that he does that maybe Anthony Joshua can read himself, because AJ has a good boxing brain and he is a student of the game. So expect the same kind of mindset and expect Anthony Joshua to be trying to take things away from Fury, just as Fury will with AJ. This is way more than just a boxer versus a puncher. The puncher can box and the boxer can punch. I mean, I don't think you can label Anthony Joshua just a puncher. I don't think you can just label Tyson Fury a pure boxer, because Fury's style comes from something that is very awkward. His physical stature comes into it also. His size, his strength, his power, his movement for such a big man. That also comes into it. His reflexes as well for someone of that size. Those are fundamentally important to the style that Tyson Fury has created. Just as Anthony Joshua, his physical attributes do come into it hugely. So that is very important to both fighters, and the mindset as well, because that attribute will be very important as to who has the best game plan and who sticks to it and is able to carry it out under pressure in this undisputed fight. Whoever has the best game plan will be the one who is victorious, but not just that, who is able to carry it out and not deviate from it and become emotionally involved in this contest. That is going to be something that is very important also in this undisputed fight. It is way more than just thinking that Anthony Joshua has these fundamental flaws or Tyson Fury does. It's about who answers those questions in this fight, who is able to stick to their game plan and not deviate, and who can put into motion all of the things they have learned during their careers and use them to their advantage in this contest. That is going to be extremely vital in this fight. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this? Make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below, leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new. Thanks guys.